Do you remember? When your luggage was a few kilos over at the airport, the agent at the counter would look you in the eye. They'd see a student traveling to school, reallocate unused weight allowances from empty seats, and let it slide. A human, connecting with another human. But today, there is no human standing behind the counter. Only a cold, rigid, automated kiosk that won't grant you a single ounce of mercy. You can't explain your situation. You can't reason with it. Because that machine was never programmed to feel empathy. That small feeling of helplessness you experience at that kiosk. Now imagine that exact same feeling in the eyes of an innocent civilian standing beneath an autonomous strike drone targeting them from above. You can't reason with it. You can't scream for mercy, because the very same unfeeling lines of code will one day draw the line between life and death. And the most unsettling truth of all, none of us are mere spectators in this cold new world. With every single step we take, we are building it. Picture this. It's July 2016. Central Park, New York, 11 p.m. Suddenly, thousands of people, working professionals, teenagers, tourists, start running in total chaos. Traffic stops. People leave their cars running in the middle of the street. Why? Because a tiny virtual creature called a Vaporeon just spawned on a mobile screen. To the news media, it was a heartwarming story about a harmless video game bringing humanity together. To the ordinary player, it was pure dopamine. But behind the tinted glass of Wall Street boardrooms, venture capitalists and corporate strategists were watching this exact same stampede with a completely different look in their eyes. They didn't see a game. They saw something far more valuable. They saw the largest, most compliant, zero-cost labor force in human history. What if I told you that every step taken, every camera pointed at a building, and every Pokestop scanned over the last decade had almost nothing to do with gaming? What if I told you that millions of players unwittingly executed a multi-billion-dollar corporate heist, paying out of their own pockets to build the exact spatial intelligence infrastructure that is now guiding autonomous military weapons in GPS-denied war zones? This is the story of how a harmless mobile game became the blueprint for modern warfare, and how a masterclass in corporate illusion turned ordinary citizens into unpaid intelligence assets. To understand how a trap this big was set, we have to follow a trail of money that leads far away from Silicon Valley gaming studios. We have to go back to the early 2000s, to a small startup called Keyhole Inc. Keyhole didn't build entertainment software. They built high-resolution, 3D satellite mapping technology. And when tech investors turned them down, a very specific type of backer stepped into the room. In-Q-Tel. For those unfamiliar with the defense world, In-Q-Tel is not a normal venture capital firm. It is the official venture capital arm of the Central Intelligence Agency, the CIA. Their entire mission is to identify and fund commercial technologies that can serve military and intelligence operations. In-Q-Tel poured millions into Keyhole. The goal was simple: map the physical world in total, unfiltered digital detail. By 2004, Google recognized the raw power of this asset and bought Keyhole outright, transforming its software into what you know today as Google Earth. And the man leading that acquisition? A corporate executive named John Hanke. A decade later, John Hanke spun out of Google to form a new entity, Niantic. The corporate spin-off was framed as a fresh, innovative mobile gaming studio. But the core DNA remained identical. The objective was never just to entertain you. It was to solve a problem that Google's billion-dollar mapping vehicles never could. In the mid-2000s, big tech hit an invisible wall. Companies like Google and Apple spent tens of billions deploying fleets of LiDAR-equipped, street view cars. But cars have a massive structural flaw. They cannot walk up the steps of a cathedral. They cannot drive into narrow alleyways, public parks, pedestrian plazas, or shopping malls. The physical world where humans actually live and walk remained a massive black box to artificial intelligence. Mapping those pedestrian spaces using paid employees would have cost hundreds of billions of dollars in global logistics, salaries, and equipment. Enter Niantic's masterstroke of corporate arbitrage. Instead of hiring an army of field surveyors, Niantic released Pokémon GO. They placed digital rewards, virtual items like Pokeballs, Stardust, and rare eggs, at real-world landmarks, public monuments, and building entrances. Then, they introduced AR scan tasks. They asked players to point their smartphone cameras at these landmarks and walk around them for 10 seconds to improve their gaming experience. Think about the sheer financial genius of this maneuver. Tech giants were burning capital to map roads. Niantic incentivized 230 million people to voluntarily walk into every hidden corner of the planet, capturing pedestrian-level imagery from every conceivable angle, in every lighting condition, 365 days a year. The result? Over 30 billion high-resolution 3D frames of spatial data, acquired at literally zero labor cost. In fact, it was better than zero cost. Players were actually paying Niantic billions of dollars in microtransactions, while generating the very dataset Niantic was collecting. It was the ultimate corporate leverage, but the real twist was yet to come. By 2024, Pokémon GO was aging. The gaming market was shifting. Player engagement was fluctuating, and maintaining a massive mobile gaming infrastructure was becoming an operational liability. It was time for the ultimate corporate exit strategy. Behind closed doors, a high-stakes negotiation was taking place. On one side of the table sat Niantic executives. On the other side sat representatives from Savvy Games Group, an entity backed entirely by Saudi Arabia's massive public investment fund, the $900 billion sovereign wealth fund, known as PIF. The Saudis were aggressively buying up global gaming assets to diversify their economy away from oil. They wanted marquee gaming franchises. Niantic executed a textbook, ruthless corporate maneuver known as asset unbundling. They structured a deal to sell their gaming division, the actual Pokémon GO mobile game, the player accounts, the brand operations, and the consumer maintenance, to Scopely, a subsidiary of the Saudi fund, for a staggering $3.5 billion. To the public, it looked like Saudi Arabia had just bought one of the biggest mobile games in history. But look at what stayed behind in the dark. Niantic did not sell the true gold mine. They handed over the game, the server costs, and the operational risk to the Saudis. but they quietly retained ownership of the entire 30 billion image geospatial database. In a single move, Niantic cashed out $3.5 billion in liquid capital at peak game valuation, offloaded the burden of managing casual players, and kept the ultimate prize: the large geospatial model, the digital twin of the physical world. They rebranded their core enterprise as Niantic Spatial. The game was merely the Trojan horse used to collect the data. Once the data was secured, the horse was sold off and the real business began. So, why is a 30 billion image 3D map of the world worth infinitely more than a $3.5 billion video game? To answer that, you have to look at what is happening on modern battlefields right now. Warfare has entered an era of catastrophic electronic warfare. In modern combat zones across Eastern Europe and the Middle East, powerful military jamming systems blanket entire regions, blocking satellite signals. When GPS is jammed or spoofed, multi-million-dollar satellite-guided drones, precision missiles, and autonomous ground vehicles instantly lose their orientation. They become blind metal, falling from the sky. Military commanders faced a terrifying bottleneck. How do you guide an autonomous weapon to its target when space satellites are dead? You give the machine eyes. You use a visual positioning system, or VPS. Instead of relying on a signal from space, a drone equipped with a camera looks down at a street corner, a building facade, or a park entrance. In milliseconds, its onboard AI compares what its camera sees against a pre-stored 3D point cloud map. If the camera feed matches the 3D map down to the millimeter, the drone knows its exact location on Earth, completely offline, completely immune to GPS jamming. And where did the artificial intelligence get the billions of pedestrian-level 3D angles required to recognize every street corner on Earth? It was trained on the casual Sunday walks of 150 million Pokémon players. Today, Niantic Spatial is no longer marketing itself to gamers. It is licensing its large geospatial model to robotics startups, smart city infrastructure firms, and defense intelligence contractors like Vantor. The loop is officially closed. Section 5 of the Terms of Service that millions of players blindly clicked back in 2016 granted Niantic the explicit right to sublicense user-generated data to third parties. An executive speaking at a defense intelligence conference made it undeniably clear: militaries and defense agencies are a primary market for centimeter-accurate spatial models. We used to believe that consumer entertainment and military technology lived in two separate dimensions. We thought games were just games, and weapons were made in defense factories. The reality of the digital age is far more sobering. The most powerful corporate data moats are no longer built inside sterile data centers by highly paid engineers. They are financed and constructed by everyday people who pay for the privilege of building the very tools that reshape global power. You didn't just chase a Pikachu in 2016. You unwittingly funded, mapped, and trained the visual brain for the next generation of autonomous warfare. And as physical artificial intelligence prepares to take over the real world, remember this: the most dangerous reconnaissance tool ever created was never a military satellite orbiting the Earth. It is the glowing screen sitting in the palm of your hand right now.